We're continuing with our maintenance on the SVL75, and today we're going to change the engine oil and the engine oil filter. And we need a couple of things for that. The thing that I couldn't find anywhere in the manual is what size socket takes off the plate underneath so you can get at the drain plug, and that is a 17 millimeter socket. This is the longest wrench handle I've got, so hopefully it's long enough to get the bolts free. I've got a couple of different wrenches for taking off the oil filter. This one will fit the Kubota filter, but sometimes there isn't enough space. But on this engine oil filter, I think we've got enough room to do that. But I did bring some straps in case I need to get into a tighter spot. When you're taking the filter off, it's a good idea to have a pan you can put underneath the filter. And then you need about 2.5 gallons of oil, although I've read that those amounts are not that accurate, so I do have a little bit of extra oil, an extra gallon, so that if 2.5 is not enough, we've got a little bit more so that we can fill it up. So we're ready to get started. Let's start with getting that engine compartment panel off from the bottom of the skid steer. I don't have anything to get the skid steer up any higher. I guess I could put it on the wood planks, which would give me another inch or two, but I'm just going to slide on the cardboard to reach the bolts. So to get at the drain plug for the oil, this big plate has to come off, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 plates, and of course it rained, so it's dripping. But what I'm hoping to be able to do is loosen up the back corner so that the water will drain out back there, because I'm upside down right now, so the water's falling that way. So I'll loosen up those two so that the water will drain out. Then I'll take this one, and that far one out, and hopefully we can just rotate this out of the way to get at the drain plug. And it's working. We got the plugs a little bit, the bolts loosened up a bit here, and now the water is really pouring out. So I will loosen them up the rest of the way, and hopefully the water doesn't rain down on me. Well, we got all the bolts out, and so the water, a lot of water and a lot of mud. It's too bad that had to happen on a rainy day. Would have been better to get it cleaned out. We'll have to clean that plate off before we close it up. But our oil plug is over here, so we'll need to get that off, see what size socket that is, and get that off next. Well, I'm going to try and squeeze in here and show you the oil plug. Here it is. And of course, they don't mention anywhere what size this is. We had a 21 millimeter. Guess what? It don't fit. However, 7/8 does. A little bit of play in it, but I think for our purposes, so we can get this done today, we'll get her done with this. So the plan here is to use this oil pan. We'll put the oil pan out of the way here a bit, but it can hold all the oil. So we're going to have to undo this and keep our pan adjusted such that it starts to catch all the oil as it comes out. So we'll get the socket. These bolts have been on really tight, so I'm sure getting that loose is getting this oil plug loose is going to be a joy. But let's see how it goes. All right, folks, let's see how hard this is. First attempt. Why do they put everything on so bloody tight? Oh, hey, not too bad. For once, I didn't need an impact wrench. All right. Yeah, not too bad. All right, let's get our oil pan ready. And there it goes. It's a little warm, but not too bad. So now we'll just let it drain for a while. while the oil pan is draining, we can get ready with the filter. The manual says to put a small tray underneath here. We can get this hose out of the way. But it's very tight in there. And what you're trying to do is just catch any oil as you take the filter off, catch the oil. And so I'm gonna kind of do belt and suspenders here. We're gonna put that under there, and I got a junk bowl, and we'll just put underneath that. And so between those two things, we shouldn't get too much oil down in the pan or the belly of the skid steer. So now we just need to unscrew that off. There we go. All right. Tight. Oil. So we'll just let that drain a little bit. I have seen where people put like big soda bottle type containers around it, you know, to unscrew it and have it drop into that. But I don't drink soda, so I don't have a big soda pop bottle that would fit around that. Unscrew a little bit more. Just let it continue to drip. Underneath we're just about done dripping, so you can let this drain a little bit more. Do another turn. And I do have my safety glasses, which I am using when I'm in a position where I can get my eyes, but it is really hot and humid, so they're steaming up and I can't see, so I'm only using them when I have to. There we go. Oh, and of course I sloshed it a little bit anyways. So we'll get the bowl out of here. So I'll just clean this pan up a little bit, and then we'll be ready to put the, well, you know what, I'll leave the pan on there until we get the other filter in. So let's get the other filter ready. So one of the things they tell you to do is put a little oil around the ring. Normally I'd use clean oil, but I don't have that available to me at the moment. Oh, my lovely assistant will get the oil. Take two. We're going to open the big one first because it actually takes more oil. Stand by. Put it on the O-ring. And then normally we fill this up partially. Now I don't want to fill it up all the way because the oil filter goes in at an angle, but I am going to put a little bit of oil in this off camera here, and I'll be right back. So now we've got about half of a filter full of oil in there. Again, it's not on the manual, but every place I've ever been, that's how they do it. So a little more oil on the O-ring, and then we'll screw it back in. And again, everywhere I've read, hand tight and then halfway. So we got it hand tight, and then we'll do a half turn. Well, maybe a little bit more than that because it feels pretty loose. So not too much pressure on it. Now we'll get the rest of this out, then we can put the oil plug in, clean this up, and then we'll be able to put some oil in the engine. So we'll do a little cleanup, and then we'll be good. So it's been about 10 minutes. We'll pull the pan out from underneath that we caught the oil in. Try and keep our cardboard clean. And we'll need to put our plug back in. Tighten it back up with our 7/8 inch wrench. Okay, Piper. So our oil pan overflowed just a teeny bit, so we'll have to clean that up. And then we've got to get the bottom protective plate. We got to put those bolts back in. And then we'll be ready to add oil to the engine. So we'll work on cleaning this up, and then we'll do that last step. So now to close this up, I'm just going to spin the plate back into position and put in the 3 bolts and tighten it up. So one extra step I took was to wipe all the dripped oil out of that area. So that way, as we fill it up and then when we start the engine, if it is leaking at all, it'll be easier to tell. Perfectly clean all in that area. Another thing to be aware of, there are 2 plugs labeled oil. This one's labeled oil and this one's labeled oil. So it says oil right there. But notice it's got the hydraulic symbol. So this one's for your hydraulic oil. This one is for your engine oil. All right, we're ready to add the oil into the engine. And this is, again, the oil filler. And it's in a really awkward position. So I'm going to have my assistant hold a funnel for me. And down here, just it mentions to you, what's the engine oil grade, CJ4 or CK4. Well, that's actually an old type of oil, really Shell Rotilla T4 SA15W40 is actually better than that. So this specification for oil is a bit old. And it does say 9 liters or 2.38 gallons. Well, this is 2.5. So in theory, this should be too much. But I've also seen online where people are saying that number is not too accurate. So we may need to put in this entire container of oil. Okay, so to put our oil in, get our cap off. Set that down. And I'll have my assistant step in and hold the funnel. I don't know how you would possibly do this by yourself because it is just, it's in an impossible angle. It's even going to be hard with an assistant because it's just going to be hard to have it flow downhill. We're going to have to go really slow. So hold it right there, assistant. And let's see if we can do this without making too much of a mess. Yep, and we're making too much of a mess. Can you bring your arm closer to the machine that way? There we go. Wow, and that is going slow because it is barely downhill. Why? I wish the engineers had to work. The people that design these engine compartments should need to do 10 maintenance cycles on everything. so that they redesign this right. This is just annoying. Everything you work on is like this. And we're making an even bigger mess.
Use one of our universal spouts.
It's going really slow. Unfortunately, it wouldn't fit. Wouldn't make the distance either. It's almost like you need a 3-foot hose on this thing so you could be way out from the oil. And it's rained today.
You take the screen out.
No, because there's junk falling from the trees and. So it is going really slow. We've got a screen inside the funnel that catches material, and we're out in the open, you know, where different things can fall off the trees. So we're just going to have to do a little bit at a time. So we kept filling it and checking it and filling it, and we ended up using all 2.5 gallons of the oil, and it still is just barely at the lowest mark. So I'm going to double check the manual and see what the manual says. Oh, sure. Drop that. So let's clean that up. This is how things go for me. But I think the manual says, you know, to fill it with oil and then run it a bit. So let me clean this up and I'll check the oil, and then we'll check what the manual actually says to do, and we'll do what the manual says. So we added 2.5 gallons, and we kept checking the dipstick, and we weren't quite getting to full. So let's see where we're at with 2.5 gallons in. Now we're at least halfway between the two dots. So much better. As you're putting everything back together, don't forget, if you move some hoses around, get everything tucked back to where it belongs before you do anything. So just a disclaimer for all of this stuff. I'm not a mechanic and I barely know what I'm doing, but I do read the manual. So it's always important to read the manual. And the manual does say that once you've filled it up to the oil capacity, you should run it for 5 minutes and then turn it off and check it. And while it's running, make sure that the low oil light doesn't come on. Well, the manual actually says low fuel, but obviously they meant low oil. So we're at the stage now where we can just close this door. We'll start it up for just a minute. I'm going to double check to make sure it doesn't leak. And then we'll do the 5-minute run and see if we need to add any more oil. So hopefully we're close to the end of this project. All right, I ran it for 1 minute just to see if we have any leaks. So let's take a look. I don't see anything on the filter, so it looks clean. That's good. So I think we're good to do our 5-minute test. Well, let's check. Actually, let's check this real quick. Let me get a clean paper towel. And I'm being extra cautious just because I'm not very good at stuff like this, so I'm just really being cautious. We're pretty level, but not super level, and it's nice and clean. I would call this between the two dots. I would not call this all the way full. So I think we may have to add more, but we'll do the 5-minute test and double check. Okay, we ran it for 5 minutes. Let's see what our results are. definitely warm. This is really going to be really hard for you to see this, but basically it's about halfway between the two dots. So I think we're supposed to add a bit more, so it's time to double check the manual. So we'll double check the manual on how we're doing on the oil. So the manual doesn't say this, but the Kubota app for the iPhone, if you use the app guides for maintenance, actually says that the oil should be filled to that second hole in the dipstick. So we're at the midpoint. We probably could wait, run it a little bit and check it again, but we're going to add a little bit more oil to bring it up a little bit before we call this project completely finished. So that means we need to get this off of here. Come on. Come on. See, that's what my wife always tells me. I just use too much muscle. All right. I'll bring my assistant in here to help us again. The other thing the app shows is this really cool oil, like a jug, with a really long spout for filling in oil. So may have to look online to see where in the world those things are from. I'll share that in the video. And we'll put just a little bit more than this in that. But we definitely, we didn't spill that much out of that 2.5 gallon container. And we put, so 2.5 gallons is more than what should be required. And we still really weren't up to what the app says to fill it to. The manual did not specifically say to fill it to the second notch or the top notch. So who knows, maybe the app is wrong too. That was probably about a quart, probably. This is a 1 gallon container. So, oh, yeah, it's on the side. Yeah, we put in just over a quart. So we'll let that run down. Still going. Screen keeps it clean, but it sure makes it flow slow. But it's also probably our angle and turns and a few other things also that are slowing us down a bit. All right. So we'll start it up for just a minute more and let it run for just a little bit and we'll test it again. Okay, we ran it another minute after adding oil, so we'll check it again, see where we're at. And I think if it's not showing full now, I think we'll call it quits and just let it sit until the next time we're going to use it, and then just fire it up, do our greasing and everything, and then recheck the oil. I always check it before I start it up. But we'll check it then after it's pulled out of the storage unit and see if we need to add oil then, because this is taking longer than I thought. Simple oil change, simple. Anybody can do it. Well, I think that's to the top of the hole, but this oil is so nice and clean. It's almost a little bit hard to tell. Yeah, I would say this is up to the top. It's not going to show on the camera very well, but I basically can see that it's about to there. So it's just below the top hole. And on this side, it's about the same. So maybe a little bit closer to the hole. So I think we're good for now. And again, the manual just says to get it to register on the dipstick, and it's the app that says to go to the top hole. So there's a little bit of conflict of information. So we're going to call it good for today. Thanks for watching. And if you have suggestions on how to help the rookie, please post them in the comments, because I still have a lot to learn. Thanks. Have a great day.